Welcome. Today we're diving deep into your highest value gifts, your superpowers, those divine talents that are meant to unlock something that only you can unlock and will create profound impact in the world. We'll explore why many soul led entrepreneurs and leaders are underutilizing their gifts and how you can step more fully into your power. Hi, I'm Prema. Welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. I just want to remind you that this is a call in show and that you can call us at 1 866 5 excuse me, 1 866 451 1451 with your questions. And you can always send your questions and comments to askprema@solutionary.com. That link to that email will be with the show wherever you're watching it. And I always love to hear what's landing for you, questions I can answer on future episodes. So love to hear from you. So this subject is near and dear to my heart, our highest value gifts, because literally encoded in your soul blueprint, you have gifts that only you have. And when you use them, they literally are your superpowers and they will unlock something in the world that only you can unlock only in your unique way. Like sometimes an author might think, well, somebody's already written a book on that. Like I wrote a book and mine's unique to what it is. But even if you're writing a book on gardening, for instance, no one is going to have the take on it that you have. So our gifts come through whatever it is that we pour them into, whether it's your work, your career, your business, your family, your projects, whatever it might be. But most of us have a lot of our superpowers are locked up in ways that are keeping us from our full expression, our full authenticity, and also that keeps us from the full level of our wealth and of our prosperity. So we'll be diving into all of that today. First, I want to give you a little bit about the cosmic weather and what's going on. At the end of our episode, before we wrap up, I will do an oracle card reading from the Sacred Wealth Code Oracle deck. And of course, my book, Your Sacred Wealth Code, Unlock Your Soul Blueprint for Purpose and Prosperity. And the journal and the cards are all available at my website, but also on Amazon. And anything I'm mentioning, you're going to find a link in the show notes to all of that. All right, so let's talk about it. Today's a new moon. As I'm recording this today on February 27th, we have a very powerful new moon, and it is the start of eclipse season as well. So we're going into a pretty interesting time, I want to say, March, April into May even. The most shifts of the whole year are happening during this time. So this new moon is the last new moon we have before we get into the eclipses. And a new moon always starts a new cycle. So the first eclipse that we will have will be within this cycle. And that's why we're calling it the beginning of the eclipse cycle. Eclipses are where I want to say they're really the aspects in the heavens that are causing the big changes in our life, and the underlying intention is for growth. Look, we're not going to grow without change, without being bumped out of our comfort zone in some way. We are probably not going to stretch and grow as much as we could. So the eclipses agitate certain areas of life depending on what constellations they're in and what that means for you. They happen to be in Pisces and Virgo in Vedic astrology, and those areas of life are over the last year have been getting purified, let's say, and also new opportunities have been coming in, which also could translate to complication and having to let go of some things or feeling like there's loss. I'm going to dive more into the eclipses in our next episode. That'll still be before we hit our first eclipse. So stay tuned for that, because these are the game changers, the cosmic game changers and reset for us. And in my Vedic astrology readings, I go into this deeply for you. So the link is also available wherever you're watching the show, or just go to my website, solutionary.com, and book a reading with me. And I will really dive deep on how these changes are affecting you, what you can expect, what's been going on, and what's the best way for you to navigate them. What's really your soul calling you to during this very transformative time? The new moon that we're having today, it's auspicious that we're having this session today, and it is in Aquarius in Vedic astrology. at about 15 degrees, right in the middle of the sign, which makes it super strong. And if you've been feeling like a deep inner calling to break through your limitations, elevate your purpose, and align your success with your soul's highest vision, this is really a moment to recommit and restart to that with this new moon. It's very much a cosmic reset designed for conscious leaders who are ready to activate their next level of impact, influence, and income. But the caveat is with full spiritual alignment. So we're entering this portal of transformation that will define how you approach your life, your business, and your purpose. And that's why this new moon is really a game changer for conscious leaders. The thing is it is happening in Aquarius, which is a very humanitarian placement. I won't geek out on you too much, but Saturn's been sitting there for the last 2.5 years and is just about to make its exit into Pisces. But while Saturn's been there, which is our great organizer and administrator in the Sacred Wealth Code system, it owns this placement and it's very strong and has so much to do with social purpose, like what we're here for, how we use our gifts that really affects the collective, the greater good for all. And that's been going, I want to say, under a process of refinement. And, this is a lifelong process, but especially over the last 2.5 years. And this new moon is kind of bringing a culmination to something maybe you have been working with or potentially struggling with to actualize or even to understand over this last 2.5 years. Because like if you've really built material success, but you feel that inner pull to something deeper, you're ready to amplify your influence without compromising your authenticity. It's because that's your soul has this expression that it really wants to actualize, which has a lot to do with your high value gifts, which we're talking more about today. But this sign of Aquarius is all about this sort of purpose driven use of our gifts and how we connect in with others around that, what our values are around independence and our ideals for where we want to see the world go, the collective go. And look, we're under a lot of uh, intense changes as far as the collective goes. And whatever you're doing, whatever you're choosing, how you're using your energetic currency and using your purpose and your gifts is a huge part of that, contributes to that. So it's really important for us to be very conscious. And with this new moon, I want to say like making either a recommitment or a new commitment to really what you're taking a stand for as far as your purpose goes. And how does that affect the what is the contribution that that makes? I fully believe that if we are all on purpose, we are really attending to our energy, our own circle of influence, and living as much in alignment as we can with our purpose and doing what we're here to do in the world, but also taking really good care of ourselves and our family and our loved ones, that has a huge effect on the collective. And then there's the bigger mission. How does that play out? But by us really just taking care of ourselves and at what our energy interacts with, just not sort of on our first, second, and third level of a sphere of influence is huge. And if we were all doing that, what would the world look like? So this is also happening in the nakshatra called Shadabishak. That's an area of stars that's within Aquarius. And with Vedic astrology, we go deeper and we look at things at a finer level. And this placement in the sky is known to be the place of 100 healers, a portal for deep spiritual and emotional healing and transformation. That does not exclude physical, but it really goes to those deep layers of spiritual, emotional healing. The water bearer is the symbol for Aquarius, which is pouring forth wisdom, innovation, and soul aligned change. And you have wisdom, you have a level of innovation and soul aligned change within you that's being evoked at this period of time. And like I said, it's really over the last 2.5 years, but this new moon is really asking you to come into like another intention around this, and also to realize, what do you need to heal? what's in the way. It's a time to release those old structures and step into your higher purpose. There's likely to be powerful insights if you take the time to really tune in during this new moon. Meditation, get out in nature, get in water, whether last night I was in my hot tub underneath the stars, whether that's bath or a hot tub or some body of water. These things will help ground you and open you up. So it's time to set our intentions around, okay, what is the difference that you are being called to make, and just what is the next steps in that you want to commit to in this new moon. New moons are always when the sun and the moon, that's the king and the queen in the archetype system, coming together. And in that, it starts the new 30-day cycle. So it's always a great time. We can set our intentions anytime. Absolutely. Set them every day. Have an intention every day for whatever you do. Actually, have an intention. That brings in clarity. But this is like that intention for the next 30-day cycle. So, as I said, we are going to be going into this stormy period of time, this eclipse period of time, and I'll get into that a little bit more. But if you've been feeling that underlying restlessness or something that just keeps showing up and you're like, wow, how long am I going to have to go through this? Or is this really ever going to change? Or I really need to do this differently or step into, my work differently. And then I'd invite you to book a reading with me because these eclipses are going to shake us up in this all these areas, and it's really good to make some sense of that because it's really good for something, and when you know what it's good for, you can get your energy aligned with that and start moving in that direction instead of feeling the push pull and just kind of getting back, swatted around by it all. So the new moon is new beginnings, and take this time in this next cycle too to make the connections with the people who are aligned with your values, aligned with what you're here for, your purpose. Because look, we don't do it alone, we do it together. And we want to connect with those who are like-minded, like-hearted, and where our intentions, our purpose uh, complements one another. And then we can be more powerful in that way. So this is really good for that sort of networking, that collaborating around our social purpose. And in essence, this is, especially over the last 2.5 years, and again, culminating with this new moon, a big call to be really authentically who you are more than ever. And look, in this day and age, and with all the AI and everything else, keep in mind that your authenticity is one of your biggest superpowers. It is what will differentiate you in any market, uh, and in any group. Your authenticity, who you actually are, and you really being in tune with your gifts is one of the best ways to just naturally show up in your authenticity. So I do want to mention too, with all this energy going on, two more things. One is Mars has just gone direct, which is hallelujah. Mars is our great honorable warrior and very much our strategist in this placement of Gemini it's in Vedic astrology. Mars has not been strong for a long time. It retrograded for since the fall. It has been debilitated. It's going to debilitate again in another month or so, but it's moving forward. That's a good thing. When a planet starts going forward and it's going to go back over all the places it retrograded over, we had a time to reevaluate during the retrograde. But now when it moves forward, we've got the energy and the clarity to start making some choices and to do things differently. So you're going to feel like you can take action. Mars is our planet of action. This, went direct just 4 days ago, and it's starting to get into gear. So anything that you feel like maybe was, that's been on a standstill, you've been pushing boulders uphill, whether that was, in your business, in your relationships, it kind of depends on where this hits you, depending on your chart. But the big thing here is that it is getting us moving forward, feeling productive. The one thing I'm going to the one thing I want you to be cautious about is stay out of arguments. This aspect can make us use our words more than move our feet sometimes. Instead, get into action um, and stay out of being too opinionated. Okay, so that's that Mars energy. So again, we are in a very rich and potent time. A lot's going to be moving, shifting, and changing, but we've got some things moving forward, which is super helpful during this time. And if you want to tune into more of the astrology updates, make sure that you uh, get on my newsletter, take the Sacred Wealth Code quiz, go to my website, and then you'll get all those updates. And when I do the full astrology updates, you'll get those in your email as well. Okay, so this topic is near and dear to my heart. It is the third pillar in the Sacred Wealth Code system. We've been working through the four pillars over the last couple of weeks here, and we still have one pillar to go. So, this pillar is all about understanding your divine gifts. It is your highest value gifts, and your highest value gifts are the key to your sacred wealth code in this. So, we talked about the first pillar being your purpose. When you know that purpose of why you're doing whatever you're doing, your work in the world, the purpose for why you're creating the wealth that you're creating or that you desire to create. Purpose gives us meaning, gives us deeper fulfillment, gives us intention. Then, when we have the passion, which we talked about in episode 5, which is the second pillar of wealth, then we've got some fuel. We've got some energy. We've got some fuel to be able to fuel our purpose. When we have, when we are in tune with our highest value gifts, which is essentially the essence of what your sacred wealth code gives you. Absolutely, it gives you purpose, but it also the mechanism is it gives you your highest value gifts. And they're like houses that are standing at the intersection of your purpose and prosperity. And when we operate from these gifts, we're positioning ourselves in our soul's neighborhood with a perfect view of that where passion and abundance come together. And it's where we can really pour that essence of ourselves, that greater part of ourselves that wants to be so expressed. We can our energetic currency where we can pour it into what we're doing and do it in our unique way, and where we experience the deeper meaning when we're doing that. So, as conscious leaders often undervalue their gifts and talents because look, we've all been given a lot of praise, hopefully a lot of praise, but we've all been reinforced for what we do well. And what we're good at isn't necessarily what our actual gifts are. What we're good at is something maybe we've gained a skill in. I'm good at way too many things. And in fact, I always say if I'm coming back for another lifetime, I'm just going to say, I don't know. Because I look, I lived on my own since I was really young. When I was 15, I was living on my own. I'd been working like a real job since I was about 13. And I knew how to do a lot of things. And I had to continue to learn to do a lot of things in order to make money, survive, eat, have a place to live, all the things. And I did. I was super independent. But I was started to say to myself pretty young, like, I really want to know what I'm really supposed to be doing. Because I would bounce from one job to the next. And because I knew that if I really knew what I was supposed to be doing, that it would light me up and I could do it really well. So I went through a lot of things, but I also got sort of stuck in being because I could do a lot of things and had a lot of skills that I got those got reinforced in me. And it took me a little while to come around to like, okay, what am I really here for? In truth, I want to say that our high value gifts unfold throughout our life in the way that they are expressed. And that's still happening for myself. That's still happening. My business is always going through an evolution. Who I am and what I'm offering the world, uh, my own authenticity is always going through an expansion and an evolution because we live in an expanding universe. But a lot of times when you start to reach a level of having influence and power at all, and leading is essentially, in my definition of leading from the heart, but we lead our own mission. A lot of times, though, when working for a company, when we take a job, and even when we create our own business, we sometimes end up leading something that maybe that's not what we really uh, want to be leading. So many soul-led entrepreneurs, underutilize their divine gifts, which leads to misalignment and sort of that underachievement. Meaning you get paid for something really well. Um, and maybe you're giving away your gifts, or you don't believe that you can actually be as highly valued for them. I have a lot of clients that have come to me in this predicament where, they're holding down a position, again, that they're feeling they're getting really well paid for. In fact, that, but they feel sort of, you know, uh, like they're selling their soul at some level. And then on the side, they're helping people in lots of different ways. And like, I have, like, say one client, I think I mentioned her in another episode, but uh, she's a colonel in the Army, and she's very good at leadership. And in that, she's also a great communicator, and she uses a lot of her gifts. And she's also an intuitive feng shui consultant and a psychic. And so that's not where she had poured a lot of her gifts as far as creating a business for herself and working with those. Now she's done that now on the side. She does have that. She's finishing up her career in the Army because she's got a lot of time invested there, but she's also learned to incorporate her gifts and honor, her intuition, her psychic ability. It's not like she's going, okay, I'm having a psychic hit about this. No, but she's internalizing that, using that, and then infusing that into her leadership role there. But she's also got a business now where she's highlighting those gifts. So I'm just curious, as you are listening to this, like, what is it that you might be giving away, so to speak? And I'm not saying that we need to charge money for all of our gifts. We we do give of ourselves, and that's a beautiful thing. But what are you potentially giving away that really has a lot of value, that you're giving away because you don't believe that it actually has the value to incorporate into your work, into your business in some way? I find that a lot of times that spiritual soul-led entrepreneurs, conscious entrepreneurs, feel like, they're struggling to sort of package those gifts into some kind of profitable offering. So let's dive in a little deeper on your highest value gifts and what they actually are. Again, there's things you're good at. There's things you've learned and you're skilled at. But there's things that you naturally are, like you were born with a PhD in, born with a PhD. So I want to invite you just to take a little journey with me, and we're going to tap in to do a little exercise here to help you connect with some of your gifts. So I want you just to close your eyes if you're not driving. And if you are driving, keep them open and listen, okay? And you can always pause this recording and take some time with this. But put your hand on your heart, take a deep, full breath, and we're just going to connect with the heart, because the heart is just the seat of your soul. And your heart is where you are connected to the unified field, the quantum field. It's also where your soul speaks to you, where your intuition is sensed, whether that comes in words, whether that is a picture for yourself, but it's your center of truth, actually. So we're just going to take a moment to tune into your heart. And I want to invite you just to sort of journey back for a moment. And what is something that maybe you were doing when you were younger in life, as a child, as a young adult even, that just lit you up, just totally lit you up? it was kind of one of those things that you just found out you were naturally good at. And what was that? And are you still doing that now? Or maybe when was the last time that you were doing that? What is something that you just love to do? Love to do. And if money were not an issue, what would you just do with that, like all day long? Like just something that you love to do. Maybe what is something that people compliment you for? Or what is something that people seek you out for? And it may have nothing to do with what you're doing as your work in the world. And one more, what do you potentially geek out about? What do you geek out about that you just can't help it? You find yourself on the internet, looking at it, researching, like, what do you potentially geek out about? All of these things that have come up here for you are some ways that you can touch in with what your highest value gifts are. And just my intention is to help you to reconnect with them. Of course, if I give you a sacred wealth code reading, or one of my Vedic astrology readings where I incorporate the sacred wealth code, I can go right to it. I can look at your plants and tell you exactly what they are. But you sense this and you know this at some level. And my intention is for you to connect in. Remember, your high value gifts are actually your superpowers. And the more that you're in touch with them, the more you use them, the more that they will grow. And the more they will grow you, your opportunities, your prosperity. And as you bring your superpowers into your daily life, you will discover new ways to use them. So you can feel free to open your eyes if you still have them closed and you're tuning in, but just notice what came up for you. And those are things I just want you to be tuning in with and open up to. Like, well, for instance, one of the things that people always came to me for, always, even since I was a kid, was problem solving. Like I just always knew there was a way. There's a part of me that just knows there's a way. It happens to be Jupiter. I have exalted Jupiter. It's really the sage in the Sacred Wealth Code archetype system. I can see things from a higher perspective. And I have a really good Mercury, so I've got this evaluative side too. And I just can always see a way through things. And so people have always come to me with their problems. And eventually, as I started to understand more of my wiring, how I'm wired up, got into the work that I do now, even as a yoga teacher, before I was even doing Vedic astrology. So I'm going to go way back here. I had a way of seeing how people who couldn't do a pose, for instance, I found a way that they could. I could just problem solve that. I could just assess it all, see what was possible. And in that, I came up with my own system. That was also my engineer at work, which is part of my wealth code. I create new systems, and that's part of creating the sacred wealth code. And also, and also with that, the ability to communicate that. And I have a really good communicator / messenger in my chart, which is the Mercury aspect. And so for you, you have these things too that are within you. For a while, I didn't know how to put it all together. And eventually I had to also do something that I teach in my program, which is boundaries. I had to create boundaries because once I did start to really understand my gifts and work them into the work that I'm doing in the world, then I had to shut the door to just being everybody's problem solver, because that wasn't really serving me, and it really wasn't serving them. That was really depleting me. So then I had to bring some boundaries. We'll talk more about boundaries in a future episode, but those are really rule sets you set up for yourself so that you have, you're maintaining your energy in a really clear way, and that you're not just, your energy have these energy leaks all over the place, and then you end up depleted, and then you don't have enough energy for what you're here to do. A client of mine, her name was Sarah. She had come to me, and she was starting an she had an echo clothing company, but she was starting another facet of it for shoes. And so she needed to get investors, and she needed $40,000. And she had hired someone to do some negotiating for her with some venture capitalists. And it really wasn't going very well. And so we dug into her wealth code, and she had a very good communicator in her chart. And it was actually in a place of great leadership where, like, she had the kind of communicator that wanted to be seen on a stage, really had that ability to communicate and lead with communication. And when we cleared the block for her that was in the way of that, then she was able to, and I encouraged her, like, she had a big negotiation meeting coming up, but somebody else was going to speak for her. And I said, it's time for you to step in and tell your story and make that and lead the conversation, but also make that emotional connection. Well, she did, and she got the $40,000 she needed and more. But that was just one example of her stepping into her gifts. And a lot of times, if you're not stepping into your gifts, and there's a part of you who knows that this, like, you're not stepping in because there's a fear, there's a block in some way, and maybe you don't know what that is, but you absolutely know that you're blocked in some way. Then you kind of end up on this hamster wheel where you keep facing it again and again and again. So it is so, so important to be connected with your gifts. Again, society has not necessarily nurtured this in us, and maybe our family hasn't. And unbeknownst to them, maybe you were really encouraged to go a particular track because your parents saw that was the way that you could make money. And that was based on their belief system. And we pick up most of our financial beliefs from our family very early in life. And when that happens, like, for instance, maybe you're very artistic, but you were encouraged to go the route of business or being a lawyer or something super traditional because of the collective belief that, okay, that's how you make money. At some level, unless you have brought your artistic creative gifts to that, you're going to feel pretty uninspired at some point, because it doesn't matter how much money you make. At some point, if you are not feeling connected with your purpose and connected with your gifts, that inspiration is going to wane. You will not have that deeper meaning. You won't feel like you've got the energy for it. And that's going to wear you out. That's absolutely a problem. So we asked some deeper questions here on connecting with your gifts. I want to talk a little bit more about another client that's coming to mind. And this is Maggie. And Maggie came to me at a particular point, and I've actually worked with this client for a long time, and she's made great evolutions in her work. But this particular point was so poignant because she was a visionary mentor for artists. She really helped them to get seen, and she had a great talent for, like, how and where, and whether it was some kind of an art show or connecting them in the right way, because she's also a great networker. But uh, she was really starting to feel flat with all that. And really, where she spent a lot of her time and energy was she totally geeked out on spirituality on every level and loves to dive deep in that. But she had a belief that she couldn't make money from that. And she had actually tried before. And she just had this belief she couldn't make money from that. And so we got her clear of that. And she turned around from that session actually and landed a $10,000 client right after it. And the reason why was she was able to connect the dots of the underlying alignment of the universe, spiritual principle, that bringing that into her actual work, like letting those principles guide the work and guide what she says and honor the intuitive hits and let that come through. That's what landed the client. That's what attracted the client and landed the client. So again, when we open up to the gifts, that it's not always that the gift will be an exact expression. So maybe you have the gifts of being super creative, or you're an artist but you're not using that, and then you decide to use your artistic medium, and then using your artistic medium, maybe you're painting or you're glass blowing or whatever it is, and you actually are using it in that form. But you might be an artist and you're using that creativity of your artist, but maybe you've got a very traditional type of a business. Maybe you have a coaching business, maybe you have a manufacturing business, and you can also infuse that into the work that you do, and it will make it more potent. It'll make it more magnetic, and it'll make you a lot more money, and make that in a way that, and I want to say wealth. Wealth isn't just money. Remember, it's everything you need to fulfill your purpose. So it's the knowledge, the relationships. It's rich. It's everything. It's the resources, and a lot of that comes through connection. So when we infuse our gifts into what we do, then that's where we're going to access not only the wealth, but the deeper fulfillment that goes along with it. And I guarantee you, if you do have a lot of wealth and you are not feeling that deeper fulfillment, or you feel like you're at a crossroads, or like, I know there's something more, then you haven't landed on the purpose or the gifts. And within the work that I do, we can land on either one of those, and it's a doorway to the other, because it's 100% all connected. So a lot of times I'm talking to people because they're not sure what their true gifts are or how to use them powerfully. And again, that is unique for each and every one of us. It's incredibly unique. Um, and if you're not attracting clients that actually value your work, then you haven't fully stepped into your gifts. And here's the thing: you have to embody your gifts and be like a beacon of light for them before the world is going to react to you. So if you've discovered, you have this amazing creative gift, or this gift of writing or communication in a particular way, or your style of feminine leadership, wonderful. And if you're going out and you're trying it out a little bit, and then you're not getting the feedback that you want, and then what's going to happen is you're going to shrink back. But you've got to come to a place where you're going to use your gifts out of like pure devotion. You're going to use them because you can't help but use them, because you know that you're just fulfilled and happy because you are using them. That makes you like this beacon of light that others can actually then see. And that's when you start to attract into you those who are in alignment with your gifts. And that alignment may be they need your gifts. They need what you have and you're here to offer. But if we are constantly, it's like checking the cake when it's not done yet. If you're constantly looking, is this it? That's the underlying message. So if you're looking on the outside and you're trying to see is okay, is somebody liking what it is I'm offering? Then you're kind of saying, is this it? Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't articulate our message. Is it landing? Things like that. Absolutely. But on a gift energetic level, man, just get out there and give what you find a way to do what you've come here to do, and do that within what you're already doing, or absolutely create the next great thing for yourself. But if you don't feel like you have, you can't create something that's going to make you revenue, make you money, Don't worry about that. Just find a way to give it, and it'll it'll start to inform you. It'll start to have a life of its own. Super, super important. So before we do our card reading, I want to ask you a very important question. And this is a tuning in question. And I want to invite you to tune into what's one inspired action that you could take to use one of your gifts. Like just one inspired action. Just tune in with that. Let that land in your heart. Your heart knows the way. And the inspired action that comes up may or may not make sense, but if you follow it, I guarantee you, the divine will start kicking your feet in the right direction. We've got a question here from Jessica that I want to address about gifts. So, how do I know which high value gifts I have? And this is in reference to, sorry, she's already gotten her Sacred Wealth Code. She's got the first step reading, which she didn't have a live session with me. She had where she got all of her archetypes and the description and a training. I call it the first, and a meditation. I call it the first step, sort of self-discovery method. And so which high value gifts do I have? I've looked at my list of archetypes, but I'm not sure how to tap these gifts. Okay. So first of all, when you are looking at your Sacred Wealth Code, you want to look at the list of high value gifts that comes with that. So for instance, let me read her question just a little bit more here. So she's also got the archetype of the leader. And so the strong ability to lead and to know what your purpose is and lead your mission. Problem solving is another one of those high value gifts of the leader, having a big picture view, having a lot of courage and confidence. So those are a few. So you look at the list that's given to you in your archetypes, or if you're just tuning in on your own, you go, I'm a leader. Okay, here's the things I know a leader is. And then you want to look at that list and you want to tune in like we've been tuning in and literally ask yourself the question, like, which one of these gifts is really mine? And I always encourage people to pick the top 3 and to start to just find ways to use them. Sometimes you're going to know like right off, okay, this is the one. And sometimes it's kind of like a faint whisper. It's something that you haven't been using, but it's like, it's in the background a little bit. So start to try them on. But I guarantee you, if you really use that question, if I tell myself the truth, what are the top 3 gifts here that are really mine to use? You're going to land on it. You're going to land on it. And let's see, was there a second part of this question? Hang on one second here. Okay, I kind of just answered this. This is what's the best way to cultivate one of my high value gifts, and that is to start to use it like I was talking about just a few minutes ago. What's an inspired action I can take and actually start to use it just on a daily basis, like build a relationship with. If you're going to go learn pickleball, which lots of people are doing, I haven't done yet. I think I'm going to do it. Then, you've got to learn the rules, and you've got to get out there on the court, and you have to learn how to hold a racket. And, so start using it, start hitting the ball. That's what you need to do. So I look forward to answering any of your questions that you want to send to me at askprema@solutionary.com. And there's so much more to say about high value gifts, and we're going to do more of that as we move along in our journey together on this podcast, because it's just such a rich, big subject and a huge part of the work that I do and help people with. But I wanted to give you an intro to it. If you do want to dive in and do some more of the exercises on your own, my book, Your Sacred Wealth Code, Unlock Your Soul Blueprint for Purpose and Prosperity, is very much a workbook. It has all the archetypes, but it also has a process it leads you through, and a whole chapter on the pillar on high value gifts, on connecting with them. And again, you can get that on my website or on Amazon. All right, we are going to do our oracle card reading today. So I'm just shuffling this deck. You might hear this. And so You can just take the reading as it is. This is timeless. You can take it anytime you're listening to this podcast. Just take the guidance that comes to you. Trust your intuition on that. If you have a particular challenge or something you're seeking guidance about, you can have the intention to have this oracle card reading answer that. And if you are wanting to go and play with it a little differently, you can also say, I'm going to do 3 cards. Oh, actually, I'm going to do 4 cards. Okay, I just heard that. And you could say, okay, I'm going to go with card number 1, card number 2, or card number 1. I'm not trying to make it too complicated, but we're just having fun here. So if there's a way that you want to play with it that way, that you absolutely can. The Oracle deck came out of the Sacred Wealth Code archetypes, and then I got the download. I was supposed to create an oracle deck that represented them, and I collaborated with a artist, and we came up with these amazing cards. I have the paintings of all of them. You'll see them in my background occasionally. And so archetypes are a soul language, and because of that, we each have our own story that's connected to that soul language. So that means that you can have your own internal reference system and ways that these archetypes can speak to you. There are 23 archetypes, 3 for each planet, 1 for the north, 1 for the south node of the moon. Okay, hold your intention. We're going to do this card draw here. Okay, don't worry, I'll tell you what they all are, and let me just get them all out here first. All right. All right, beautiful spread. So our first card is the Advocate. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see these cards, but if you're listening in, I'm just going to let you know what it is. The mantra on this is, I align with the greater good for all. This is one of Saturn's archetypes. Saturn's super strong, and actually where it is placed in Aquarius, it is very much taking a stand for the greater good for all. So the Advocate is coming through that. This is interesting. So it's coming in twofold. One is that there you may be being called to be that advocate for not just someone else, but for something for the collective, and using your gifts as an absolute way that we are an advocate for something we want to usher in, something we want to support. And when something or someone is needing an advocate, whether it's the planet, animals, people, an organization, children, whatever it might be, then it's someone who, for whatever reason, or something for whatever reason, can't show up fully for themselves, but our gift can help them to do that. So there's some of you that are really being called to step into, see your gifts as your advocacy, because that's going to help you to actually step in, because you will be more willing to do it for someone else than for yourself. So that's the message coming through with the Advocate. The second card that came out is the Artist, and this is one of Venus's cards, and Venus is exalted right now and in Pisces, and is going to be there for, till the end of May, and is going to be retrograde very soon. I'll be talking about that in my March update. And this is, I create my vision. Now, this is taking a stand for our creative gifts. And the Artist just has this way of seeing the world through an unconventional eyes, can see things, not in polarity in black and white, but in wavy lines, and more in a, creative, natural, a natural way. Like if you look at nature, is incredibly creative. So what's coming through here is you're being called into a deeper level of your creativity. There's two, I'm talking to the collective here. So there's two groups of people here. There's some of you personally that have creative gifts that you're not using, and because you're not using them, it's literally costing you energy every day. It's like a debt you're paying every day. It's like costing you, it's a huge amount of energetic currency, and therefore you are not feeling very juiced for life. You're not feeling up and lively and happening, and you probably can't use some of your other gifts because of that. So get into your creativity, lean into it, It doesn't matter how you do it. It's kind of like passion. Whereas if you are doing, your creativity, whether it is with a traditional artistic model or like I'm very creative in the garden, in the kitchen, as long as you're using that creativity, it is going to fuel your other gifts. That's what's coming through big here. And then the other piece of this is that some of you are, you're a creative and you're actually using that in your work in the world, but you've gotten burnt out in some way. And you're really being called to reinvigorate your gifts. So instead of doing your creativity for your work in the world only, you need to go back to basics and do it for you. Like I was talking before, do it as a devotion. What turns you on? If you're a singer, like, are you singing for yourself? Are you, or maybe you're just teaching that, and maybe you have a system around that, or maybe you're hired, opera singer. But are you singing what really is near and dear to your heart? So that's what's coming through on the creativity level there. The next archetype that came through is the teacher, and the teacher is to know is to grow. This is Jupiter. Jupiter's moving direct in Taurus in Vedic astrology and was retrograde for 4 months and is really starting to illuminate our values. So what's coming through here is to know is to grow 100%. Now, part of this is really taking that knowledge and using it for the greater good for all. And there's a big difference between knowledge and information. And information is, we're taking in way too much information all the time. I was learning something new last week and I took in so much information. I got into informational overwhelm, absolutely. And that overwhelm, I just had to take a big break and turn my brain off for a while and go out for some long walks and put it all down and then come back to it piece by piece because I wasn't able to assimilate. I wasn't able to digest what I was consuming. So absolutely knowledge, but wisdom. Let me go back. Information turns into knowledge when you actually use it, and it turns into wisdom when you sort of look back on your challenges and what you've gone through, and then you apply what you've learned from that. So there's some knowledge that some of you are being called to look back on and use it as wisdom now. Like, what have you learned that you could apply to what's going on now? And the other thing is, some of you are on information overload. You go to your gifts. There may not be another thing for you to learn right now. Go back to your gifts and start to use the knowledge. Use the wisdom. Start to, teach. We say that we teach best what we most need to learn. So bring that into your gifts and teach from your gifts. And then the last archetype that came in here was, hang on a second, the leader. There you go. And the leader is the sun's archetype, and the sun is currently in Aquarius. It's just about to move into Pisces. It's creating this new moon with the moon. And we talked a little bit about the leader's energy earlier, and this is the leading from the heart. And the leadership aspect here that I'm being called to remind all of you about is that you have to lead yourself before you can lead anybody else. Get squeaky clean with yourself, and for some of you, that's like really getting back on track with what you're here for and walking your talk. And for some of you, it's just taking it to the next level. There's something next for you to step in and really walk your talk on, and then you can lead it more effectively. Let's not look outside of ourselves where leadership is not happening so well. Let's look inside of ourselves and let's lead from our highest value gifts. So I would love for you to comment wherever you're seeing this, hearing this, rate this, share this with anybody it makes sense to share this with. Subscribe on your favorite platform. And if you haven't taken my Sacred Wealth Code quiz, I encourage you to do so. You'll discover your Sacred Wealth DNA. And it's a short quiz, but you are going to get one of your Sacred Wealth Code archetypes. Of course, if you want a reading, jump into one of my programs, hop onto my website, solutionary.com. You'll find all the links here. And I encourage you to be here next week and listen in again. I'm so grateful that you're here, and this is giving me an opportunity to show up and shine with my gifts. So much love to you, and I look forward to seeing you next time.